Hi everyone, my name is Stephen May and welcome to That Show with Mahy. Today I am talking to the wonderful Lisa Campbell. Lisa, welcome to That Show with Mahy.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to have a chat with you because, like I was saying offline, we work with so many different people in the industry, and you get your list on a brief and says, this person's casting, this person's producing X, Y, Z, and you're like, I don't know that person as well as I'd like to. And we don't necessarily get that opportunity unless we're like booked the gig. So I have 1,000 questions, but I won't ask you 1,000 at this time.
I've got a lot of time. I'm sure we can fit in at least 900.
All right. Well, let's start off with one. So a lot of you're born in the UK.
Yes.
And you're here in Australia now. I kind of go, why'd you leave the UK and come to Australia?
Oh, look, it was for love.
Oh, it was. Oh, okay, that's romantic.
So I came here with a national theatre. So Frosty had brought over a production of An Inspector Calls, which was directed by Stephen Daldry from The Crown and Billy Elliot, and and he did this iconic production of the J.B. Priestley play. I went to see it when I was in school, so that was a long time ago. Anyway, regardless, there was a production that was touring around Australia for 3 months, and to work in this production with Stephen Daldry, with the National in Australia over winter, British winter, there was, you're not going to turn your nose up. Yeah. So I was fortunate to get a role in that, and I came down here. We did 6 weeks in Sydney, then did 6 weeks in Melbourne. And when we were traveling from the airport in Melbourne, I'd never been to Melbourne before, traveling from the airport to our accommodation, there was a big billboard for the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee and MTC. And it was starring Marina Pryor and Magda Zabansky. And we were obsessed with Magda because we were obsessed with Kath and Kim. Yeah. Kath and Kim had just come out in the UK. And so we're like, well, we've got to go because Sharon's in it. And so a couple of my castmates went to see it and adored her in it, of course, and went backstage and said, we are very important actors from the UK and we need to meet Zabansky. And they let them in. And so they became friends with Mags.
Yeah.
And then I sort of got to know her as well. And then I got invited to a Thirsty Thursdays at the MTC in the dressing room of Bert Labonte and David Campbell. And so I'd known him for 3 weeks. We hit him up immediately. I'd known him for 3 weeks, and then I had to go back to the UK.
Wow.
And and then he called me in Singapore on the way back and asked me to move here permanently. And I did. And I only know 3 weeks.
That is, that's amazing. That is just, Thirsty Thursdays, obviously was really great. Wow, that's a great story. So like fast forward, you're in Australia, are you coming over here as an actor and thinking, all right, I'm going to have a career in acting in Australia? Yeah, right.
And, coming from the UK, where every town has a theatre, and there are a number of regional touring circuits, and consistently there is theatre going on at all times. And then you've got every major city that has 2 or 3 theatres, one which will be self-producing, plus another big regional touring house. And then you've obviously got the West End on top of that. Yeah. So I had rarely been out of work in the time that I'd been in the UK.
Yeah.
And then I came here and I was like, well, obviously all my credits are going to mean absolutely nothing. I didn't know anybody, nothing, just, whatever.
Yeah.
I sort of just made it up. And so, that was that. So I think I probably gave it 6 months I
Okay.
did a couple of auditions. I'm not in musical theatre. I wasn't a singer at all. So it was all sort of straight theatre. And, you know, it's a very different world here.
Yeah.
Um, Not just because there are fewer theatres, there are just fewer population. So of course
Yeah.
it's going to be there. There's no judgment. And so, yeah, it was about 6 months after I had been half-heartedly pursuing acting here that I realised I thought that the way that DC's tours were being run I thought it could be more profitable.
Okay.
And so I started having a look at that, and I set up a production company because I was nosy and just thought, I think I can make this work better for him. And yeah, we've been producing stuff ever since. That's like nearly 14 years ago.
Yeah. Wow. So it just literally, Luckiest Productions came out of the idea of like, I can do it better if, you know, do the same or if not better, for David, but also for, in the sense of you seeing independent productions being produced. So you thought, oh, actually there's a space for me here to hold and to be able to go
At
forward.
that point, I was not considering that I would be producing theatre. It was purely to help him out with his touring.
Right.
And then so we did that for a couple of years. And we sort of pushed into things. It was just really to support him because before he was doing any TV. So he would do an album and then tour it. It was when they had albums that were on CDs.
Yeah.
You could buy them in a shop. I'm so old. And anyway, so then we did that for a couple of years. And then the big thing for me was that he was asked to be the artistic director of the Adelaide Cabaret Festival, and they engaged me as associate producer.
Okay.
And my role became larger as the time went on.
Yeah.
That was just an absolute, like an apprenticeship, because in that time frame, if you're thinking of the Cabaret Festival, have you ever been?
I've never been to one. I've missed it for so many years. Yeah.
So good. Well, next year, this year's not going to be the one, but next year goes is wonderful.
Next year. Okay, I'll go next year. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, you've got maybe 60 shows over a 3-week period, and from a production side of things, every show has to be, you know, for due diligence and just because of how it works, every show has to be worked up like an individual show.
Yeah.
So every show has budget, so in a marketing campaign and artwork and tech specs and all of the things that, of course, you need for any show.
Yeah.
But you have to oversee that 60 times, and then to be able to see 60 different shows and their trajectory about, well, that marketing campaign didn't work, that audience market that we anticipated was going to come to that didn't, or this one was an absolute winner, so how can we replicate that the following year but not copy it, you know, that sort of thing. How can we ensure that we deliver to the audience that saw that next year? And so that for me was just an absolute gift, because it meant that by the end of our 3-year tenure, I'd been part of 180 shows lives and had a real chance to see how things worked. So at that point, I felt confident that when we get, like maybe 3 years later, and we end up with the Hays, I felt more confident that I knew how it could work.
And was it a massive door opening in the sense of seeing what Australian work was and what, in compared to the UK, you might have known the brands that were over there and how, maybe not as in depth how it works, but Australian audiences and how they respond to sort of different stories? Because in Australia, we see so many American stories, UK stories, but it's not very often you get an Australian written musical. I mean, they're getting bigger and bigger now, but 10 years ago, like, there was one or, you know, maybe two that has ever been produced. So I guess that's an amazing opportunity to see Australian work firsthand and individual stories. I guess with Cabaret is really prominent at the festival. So is that, in a way, it has certainly opened your eyes up to getting to the Hays, but also seeing what Australia wants, in a way?
Absolutely. I think it's, I love Australia. I always have done, even as a little kid. Yeah. It's a nervous thing, I guess. And Kylie and Jason, I everything about Australia I love.
Yeah.
And well, I can think, loads of things, negative things just popped into my head then. But the majority I do, and I'm an Australian now, so yeah, it's fine. There's no judgment. But to learn a culture was incredibly interesting to me. And Richard Carroll, who works very closely with me and moved here, we went to school together, and now he's on the board of the Hayes and is a director of Calamity Jane and Spamalot and Wabby. He's exactly the same, and we've always bonded on the fact that we want to know everything culturally about something. So coming here, and I want to know everything. So I've got this sort of world of who everybody in an Aussie rock world are that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd never heard of Jimmy Barnes in the UK. But, you know, then you just learn this whole landscape. Yesterday, DC was asking me about, you know, the A Little Ray of Sunshine.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's that thing of like, okay, well, Brian Cadd sings this verse, and he was married to Amanda Pellman, and Amanda Pellman's responsible for the locomotion. And so it's that sort of, and cast the first production, Priscilla. And you need to learn this world. Yeah. And that sort of, that map. And again, with musical theatre, it's the same thing. It's why I love being a casting director, because you've got this family tree of an industry in your mind of who's what with who. Okay, so right, of course, because Sarah would have been in Ladies in Black with Ellen, and but you know, whatever it may be, that's how my mind works. I find it really, really exhilarating. But back to your point, yes, absolutely, that was a huge learning curve. But also, I mean, the Australian story thing, it's very different, and I think that to ensure that we're constantly telling Australian stories is vital. Yeah, it's important I think that it's something to provide to an audience as well, because I think you're right, it's so rare. It's like when you hear that the quotas were obliterated last week. We don't care how much Australian content's now on Netflix. That's
horrific. I mean, I guess, we've always educated Australians that are sitting at home from like far and wide that, you know, like we see the American dream, we see the American movies and the American TV shows, and they want that. And I feel that we've not ever given a story about Australia, because when we think about Australian stories, we see it's a bit slower paced, it's landscape, you know, and people are like, yeah, cool. Like, how do I relate to that?
Is it? I agree with you to a certain extent, and I think there is that sort of funding models of we need some red earth, and we need that Australiana type thing.
Well, I don't necessarily think we need it. I think that's just all we've been seeing, and so we need to branch out to give them, you know, something a bit more. Like Love My Way is a prime example for me. I don't know if you've seen that, Claudia Carver, Asha Ketty. Like that's Australian. Like an Australian drama.
So is The Castle. So is Kath and Kim or Muriel's Wedding. None of these things I mean, there is something archetypally Australian because we know Australia, but they are so popular elsewhere regardless. Yes. And I think that it's also, I mean, their innate Australianness is idiosyncratic somehow, but it's not hammering home the whole time that they are British or they are Australian. Like sometimes you get those things which look like, I was talking about Notting Hill the other day, about the fact that Notting Hill sometimes just feels like an advert for London. Like, okay, yeah, it's beautiful, we get it. But it's that sort of thing like, you don't need to say that. And same with Love My Way. You don't need to hammer home the fact that it's Australian. We know that it is, and it feels that way. But I think we're saying the same thing. But yes, there should be more of that just happen to be Australian rather than are forcing the point somewhat. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess bringing it back to the Hayes and the productions that you guys put on there. I mean, it's been so successful. Like since it started, I don't think anyone in the industry doesn't know what the Hayes Theatre Company, like where it is, what's going on there, and the type of shows that have come out of there are just quality.
you know, and not everybody can successfully do that. So as, I guess, the chair of the Hays or being a part of the team, I mean, how is it just luck or you're just sheer brilliance of you as a company? But, you know, because I guess Sweet Charity was the first one am I correct? That was the first one that was produced there. I mean, stellar cast, the production team that you had there. I mean, was that just like, you know, everything that just happened, because that kind of catapulted you guys into not just a local theatre company hanging out in Darlinghurst or the Cross. Like, it was really an explosive moment for you guys.
I mean, that it's luck. No, is it luck? No. It's there is an element of luck, of course, but it's also stacking the cards in your favor. So therefore, it's not genius on our parts, but it was the fact that if you ask the most talented people you know, will they come together and make something? The chances are that it's, or you've got a better chance of being good than it not being, if you just ask randos. So, so yeah, playing with a stacked deck, but the level of what Sweet Charity achieved was way above what we anticipated.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the quality, I think, we'd hoped that it was going to be great, but I wouldn't have expected it to be as exceptional as it was. That wasn't really what we were expecting. So yes, I mean, there was a lot of luck involved, and just the fact that I think we were fortunate enough to do something at a time when there was the appetite for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just good timing. I mean, for us, it was, and when I say us, I mean all the people who initially put it together. The thought was that we were lacking that specific thing in Sydney. Yeah. Everywhere else had that sort of off-Broadway world, yes. And we didn't. And for me, I can imagine when I was a kid, I know some musicals incredibly well because they were on. Yeah. So when they put Joseph on TV a couple of weeks ago, when on YouTube, Angela Webb did that. Yeah. Joseph came on. I know every single word. Yes. But yet here, for example, everybody knows Secret Garden and JCS. They're like stock things that everyone knows that. Everyone knows just how John Stevens sings that song. You know, it's like
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And in the UK, particularly with Secret Garden, was never that big. So we don't know it, but yet anyone here is obsessed with all of the Secret Garden. So it was that thing of just thinking currently, and this is in no disrespect to anybody in the more commercial theatrical world, but just how Sydney is or how Australia is, that because there are so few houses and things have to sit for a long time in order to recoup, or because they can, that, you know, if you're a young kid in Australia, you could go a year and only see Wicked.
Yeah.
So no disrespect.
No, but
it's true. More than once. But it's that thing. Or that's it. You get to see Wicked.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Simon Gleeson the other day, and he was saying, I think it was in 2004, there was one musical playing in the country. One. Like, as you said, like, there's just one. And, you know, we just came into a time where Sydney was about to have 4 major musicals playing in the one city. You know, so when I graduated from uni, I was thinking, you know, there was one show or maybe 2 shows, this is in 2006, touring the country at a time. So like 2006, and then, you know, as time's gone on, yes, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I guess what we've seen at the moment is, you know, will it go back to that commercial production of just one big show? But luckily we have, you know, things like the Hays, or down in Melbourne here, you know, other companies are performing at Chapel Off Chapel or trying to do the Malt House and things that are coming up. Yeah, it's a really interesting look at what we're seeing as a country. To get back to what you were saying, one show um, per state, or maybe a year, they only get to see that big one commercial show.
Yeah, and particularly at that time when the Hays are starting, when none of the state theatre companies were doing musicals either.
Yes,
So, no, that's not fair.
they
No,
had they had done them, but not.
Yeah, but Simon Phillips had just left, so yeah, so MTC wasn't either. So it's a tricky time. But with the Hays, now you can see 8 shows a year in addition, or whatever
Yeah,
it may be.
yeah,
And so that was the thinking behind it,
yes,
to ensure that there was enough, and also because the beauty of what's at the Hays is that the short seasons, they allow, because of the size of it,
hmm
no one's making massive amounts of money, but people can take a lot of risk. And
right.
whether that be creatively, or in the shows that are put on, or in the choices that the director is making for that production,
Yes,
it means that there can be real innovation. And I think that for a lot of performers, forgive me, or creatives, I'm just casting aspersions here,
yeah,
that's exciting, because most of the time they're, because there are long contracts, that's wonderful. But if you finish a long contract, you want to try something different. You
yeah.
want to go and
Oh,
think
yeah.
something.
Gagging
Um,
point. Come on, give me something.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
And there's the chance that you can spend your entire career, and I'm speaking on behalf of my husband here. He spent his entire theatrical career playing leading men. Like, my heart breaks, but yeah, but you're in the same boat. It's that thing. If you're handsome and a tenor, you're screwed. But what he was thrilled about was the fact that Dean Bryant asked him to play John Wilkes Booth. So
yeah.
he finally gets to play the absolute villain. He gets to wear a fake moustache, put on some absurd accent, chew the scenery every night.
Oh,
He
yeah.
adored it, and it was the best thing he's ever done.
Right. Yeah.
But you won't get the chance to do that in most places. So I think that's the reason that we are able to continue to have success, because people continue coming back and trying new things.
Yeah. Before I get into the casting, I wanted to ask a question about, I guess now where we are with the Hays. Like, nothing's on, and for the foreseeable future, it may not be till next year. Um, are you allowed to comment, or can you comment on it, on the sense of how, in this time, have you come together yet and gone, you know what, this is what it was like, this is what's been successful for X amount of years. Now that we're going into a new kind of phase, a new kind of way of living life, do you have another opportunity then to just expand even more, or grow into a new area where borders might be shut internationally for a while? Australian work might be produced a bit more, or is it just like, you know what, we're doing pretty good, let's just stick with what we've got. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
For us, the main conversation has been, we haven't I couldn't specifically answer your question.
Yep.
In the sense that I don't think we've been thinking beyond reopening. What we've been thinking about and concentrating on right now is, what can we do in this time? And it's an interesting position that we're in, because we've really weighed up a number of things. We have a programming committee, so everything at the Hays is run by varying committees, which of course sounds like a brilliant way to create any art, doesn't it? But it's worked for us, so that we're not going to try and break. We're not going to have an artistic director. We're just sort of, everything is a vote, and it kind of works well.
Right.
But one of the members of our programming committee, Darren Yap, wonderful director.
Love.
Isn't he incredible? He's incredible.
Nice.
He shared an article with us this week about, I'll send it to you, maybe we can link it.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah,
It's
great.
about I feel like I'm a cobbler.
Mm.
And I'm gonna misquote it. I'm not gonna quote it. I'll just send you the article.
Okay.
It's really interesting because it's talking about being a stage performer or creating live work.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly, you're having to become an online content producer,
Yeah.
and what does that mean? Because this is, I mean, do we pivot, the word of 2020, do we pivot and try and recreate something that we don't do? Or do we hunker down and concentrate on what we are? And I think we're going to do the latter.
Okay.
And this is no disrespect to people who are creating, I mean, I know a number of theatre companies are creating online content now. But for us, I think what we're going to endeavour to do is to try and push resources into new Australian work.
Yeah.
So we are workshopping things, we are having readings, we are commissioning, we are we've got a number of submissions at the moment of new works which we are assessing and seeing what we can do there.
Yeah.
We've got some shows, which one in particular, which is a big scale show, which we are having to try and rework into a Hayes size show.
Yeah.
So we're using those opportunities to try and see what we can do and present that to the writers and see whether they'll be happy with what we're doing. So it's that sort of thing about moving forward into when we reopen to ensure that we've got enough, and particularly the Australian work, enough new product for the next 3 to 4 years. And I think that ultimately it's a weird time, but I don't think that people are going to forget who we are or where we are if we're shut for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think in light of that, we're best to focus all of our resources into what we can do once this ends.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're going for.
I mean, yeah, look, I didn't even know if you could answer the question. I think it's just, I'm myself just anticipating something that we can, just to look at. Sarah's income from away, and there's it's like, okay, just waiting, and like everyone is. And I can only imagine from the other side as a producer, directors, everyone going, well, our hands are tied too. We're not all sitting here going, well, we know, but we're not going to let you know yet. It's just like, no, we're all in the same boat, guys.
No, and I mean, I'm joking, there's anything wrong with me saying this, but we've modeled for 3 different outcomes. We have a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan, and a 9-month plan, because we don't know.
Yeah.
And, restrictions can be lifted, but if social distancing maintains and you have to be 1.5 meters away from people, we can fit about 8 people in the foyer. I mean, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I think there's that other aspect as well of when you do reopen, considering what the experience is going to be like. Because if it can be that you have to budget for a 25% house, I mean, you can do that, but is that going to be an interesting experience for people? Are they going to want to be there? What happens when somebody coughs? I don't know. It's all unknown unknowns. But I think that, and from my friends who are producers on much larger scales than mine, I think everybody is just in the same boat, which is just having to wait and create different models of how things can open up or work out.
Yeah.
And be as ready to go when they press play.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess.
Wait, sorry, one thing. I loved Sarah in Come From Away. I loved Come From Away full stop. Oh my God. Jeez, that's one of those things where it's one of the rare things that's worth the hype. Everybody says, oh, you'll love it. And I was like, how am I going to love this? I do love it. I love it so much.
I know. I mean, there was so much speculation about a show that was like, you're not going to do 3 months. You don't even get like, come on, it's a show about like 9/11. It's like drab. There's no publicity. There's no marketing. And they're all like, it's about word of mouth with this show. It's about word of mouth. And you're like, yeah, but the times that we're in, we're really struggling. everyone that goes to see it has the exact same reactions. Like, no, it's incredible.
I saw it the week before shutdown, and it was packed.
Yep.
Absolutely packed, like on a Wednesday night. Just wonderful. Well, just all power to them. It's a wonderful, wonderful production, and she's gorgeous in it.
Yeah, she will adore that. So casting, you've obviously, with producing, you were casting at the same time early on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like becoming more so that you want to go into casting, or you're just like, you know what, I've done this on so many different scales. And now that you're casting Moulin Rouge, is that like the biggest show you've done, or is it like just on par with like what you've done before in the past?
No, I would say, it probably is the biggest thing that I've done. I mean, I've done Priscilla here, but with regards to, having to go to New York and meet creatives and things like that, that's the biggest thing I've done. I mean, I got into it because I thought it would be useful.
Yeah.
I went and saw it like years ago. I saw Ita Buttrose talk at some lunch, and they were asking her about whether she would ever want to go into being an ambassador, because Anna Wintour was being asked whether she wanted to be an ambassador, blah, blah, blah. They asked this question and said, Ita, would you like to be an ambassador? And she said, well, I'll do whatever I can to be useful. That's when I'm at my best. And when she said this, that moment in Ratatouille where the food critic eats it and everything goes into sharp focus. And that's where I felt like, yes, that's it. That if I'm useful, then I feel content.
Yeah.
I've no desire for anything other than to be useful. And so that for me was why I felt that I would be good at casting, because I know everybody. I get to see people do a lot of stuff.
Yes.
I also get to see people often more than once, which I think can be very helpful, because I know of one actor. I won't say who it is. No, I won't say who it is, just in case. And she had flown in to do an audition, and she did not do well at all.
Yep.
She did. And the MD of this production was like, okay, next. And I had to say, no, you have to wait. I know she can do this. Yeah. And they were like, no, she can't. And I said, please just give her one more chance. I went out into the hallway and I asked her to come back and to just have 10 minutes and come back in. And she did. And she was better. She still wasn't great. She was better. But she got pulled back. And she went on and booked a gig, and she worked for a year. And that's not to say that I'm amazing, because it's just that I know that she could do better. So therefore, because of my exposure to people via the Hays and just my exposure to the industry, I feel as though it's helpful I'm useful to the artists, I'm useful to the producers, and I'm useful to the creatives, because I know the landscape. Yes. And so that, I think, makes it work.
Yeah. I mean, from a casting perspective, a question that I'm always asked, like, how can I get a casting, or why was I knocked back for a casting? And I'm sure, like, everyone believes that they are the right fit for a role sometimes. And they think, no, like I'm that person. And then like, I didn't get a casting for that. When it comes down to casting a show, it's a lot of things are decided before you get into the casting room with a bunch of actors.
Yeah.
I guess for people that are questioning that, why they didn't get a casting, would it be, I'm trying to figure out a way to word this with like, no, you're just not good enough, but like, is it just comes down to so many different variables within that show that you have a fit already for that show. So you go, right, I just have to fill those roles. Or do you go, no, I'm going to take about 20 wild cards and just see if that we can change the casting director of the States or the UK's mind of what that particular type might have been in that production overseas, but what we have here could be the flip?
Both of those things are true.
Right.
So, I mean, using Moulin Rouge as an example, the ideas. I mean, this is a show that's been created by the creatives who are still working on it.
Yes.
So their understanding and their ideas, the character, are not just here, they are back here. They know exactly what each character is required to tell within that story. It's not like they want to just have, it's so deeply entwined with their vision that, you know, who am I to say, actually, I think this guy, it's not going to happen. So with that one, it's incredibly specific, and I went to New York and sat in for a week on the Broadway recast and the US tour.
Wow.
So to see what precisely they are looking for each role. And that was fascinating and an absolute education.
Yeah.
But with that, we also had a couple of days in each city prior to the full audition tour, as it was, to meet people who we hadn't seen before, because you never know. There are lots of people who I'm saying that, and I know this person can do well, but I don't know everybody. So it's also important to have at least, I mean, if you're doing what you can see, probably 160 people a city, of new people, of new faces, of people you have no idea about. And I think that that's equally important. And if you've got the time and the resources to do that, it's great.
Yes.
For Hayes Productions, it's slightly different, because a lot of the directors are coming in completely open. Yeah. So, I mean, with Alex Balazs, for example, who still hasn't finished casting Young Frankenstein. He's got some ideas, but you know, he's sort of he's so open to what the show could be, and he doesn't know yet. He hasn't made it. So what could be? So let's just come in, and maybe that will present itself to me.
Yeah. I guess with the diversity of what we want to see in Australia more on stage is the, just casting that, you know, it could be anybody, whether you be black, white, Asian, any person, human being that's coming on there. We've seen it more so on Broadway and a little bit in the UK at the moment, but Australia, I haven't seen it jump the big commercial scenes yet. Is that something you as a casting director are like, you know what, I secretly just wish I could push in, you know, a different choice instead of the privileged white male, or, you know, the Caucasian female that just sort of fits the brief and it's fine, and push the boundaries to be, you know, having a brunette play the blonde's role, and it shouldn't matter about the color of someone's hair. Do you think about that at the moment? Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's changing a lot. Yeah. And I think that diversity is becoming even within the last 5 years, I think it's taking a strong step in the right direction. Yeah. Are we there yet? Absolutely not. But it is definitely a conversation that is had consistently. And I'm hopeful. No, I'm not hopeful. That's too wishy-washy. I will endeavour to ensure that it is something that is seen more of in this country. Great. It's vitally important that we reflect our actual society on our stages. Yeah. And I guess another question about women in the industry, and it's incredible to see so many. It's more people in not power, but just in high, you know, in the chair of the Hayes, or at the artistic director being female, and more female presence. I mean, we could talk about it across many, many industries. I am certainly one of them, you know, standing up. I grew up with sisters, and I've got a staunch feminist of a girlfriend, and it's taught me so much, you know, of my privilege and things that I didn't even realize. Are you a part of anything at the moment that is, you know, just pushing that moment of just the equality of men and women, especially in our industry? And I guess why I ask it, because you do have a sense where you are in a great sense of power, and not in a negative sense, but in a positive way, that, you know, you're a striving, positive, successful woman, and it's so rewarding to see. It's not just another male at the helm of something. Are you part of anything like that that you can share with people, they can jump on board with? Or
Absolutely. The thing that I am most proud of that we're doing at the Hayes at the moment is, so, I mean, ultimately, what's incredibly difficult about our theatre industry, full stop, is that, and this is in no disrespect, this is just how things are, is that, of course, it is driven by a majority of white men.
Yeah.
So we wanted to look at how, I mean, obviously there are ways that we can change that as much as we can by ensuring that we have a parity of female directors with male directors.
Yeah.
And it would be great to have a parity of all creatives. But when we've been looking at our programming, there are just fewer women.
Yeah.
When it comes to particularly creative positions. So how can we change that with the new generation? So something we were looking at was, I mean, the trajectory of most creatives is to go and become an associate or an assistant. So an assistant director, and learn your craft by assisting. And those are really sought after positions because, you know, I mean, it's difficult, but, you know, that they are. But if you're going to be an assistant director, generally it's an unpaid role, and the only people who are going to be able to do that are young, not mothers, because how are you going to do that and support your family? Or fathers, I suppose, but traditionally mothers.
Yes.
And also, it's particularly difficult of people who are in a low socioeconomic background. And this is something that's not really talked of here as much as it is in the UK. But in the UK, the majority of people who come out of drama school are middle class white people.
Yeah.
Which, if you think about most famous actors, they're middle class white people.
Yep.
So how can we balance that? So we have got a 3 paid internships a year,
yes,
which can be applied for. So you can just come and you can assist any of the whatever field you're in. If it's a lighting designer, you assist the lighting designer, and also that lighting designer will also receive an extra fee to mentor that person externally as well.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, and the main importance of that is to ensure that there is a more diverse pool, to ensure that we can open up these opportunities that are traditionally only able to be fulfilled by people who are in a more privileged situation. So that's something that we're doing at the moment, which I'm really, really thrilled about. It's been supported by a foundation called the Russell Mills Foundation. So if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to do it. But yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, I mean, like I said, I think I've hit my quota of trying to get to 1,000 questions. I could talk to you for hours, and maybe I'll save that for another time.
I feel guilty that I've talked so much. I want to ask you some things.
No, that's not.
I've got my own show.
Yeah, that's right. I guess this whole sort of connection, and like you said, it's like people are at home at the moment, and you know, I get a bit nervous about asking people to do things. I'm like, hey, who can I ask? No, should I ask Lisa? No, absolutely I should, because like I said, it's about me getting as much information as I can, and also educating other people. Now, if other people want to get in contact with you, they don't necessarily have your personal email, and you're not going to answer 100. So I'm very lucky that you did answer my email. But if people want to get you to know them and know their work, but indirectly, instead of just saying, here's my headshot and look at me, can you offer some advice to the industry of how in these times, because they have time, or in the future, if they're not getting seen, or they are getting seen and they just kind of want to flip it now, they just want to be someone different, how can they show you that they are around? Well, I guess, Lisa Campbell Casting, there's a lot of casting directors I'll ask, and they say, we have generals, or, send me a show reel. It's kind of hard to send a show reel. Well, it's not hard. We have just not made reels, or I've not personally ever made a singing reel and gone, hey, I'm a singer. I have a body of work, but people don't have a body of work. How could they show something like that to you without being that like, oh gosh, someone else is sending something through?
Well, so when I've got a lot of children, and when they go back, to school,
yeah.
We're planning on having exactly that, which is Zoom meetings and opportunities to have generals, which is not
for just your casting company, or for
for me, for our casting.
Yeah.
To just to meet people. This is the time to do it. I'm doing it with a lot of WAPA students. So I've got 3 WAPA students who I'm in Zoom contact with once a month to see what they're up to, what they're doing. They're doing a thing tonight, so I've got to watch that. So we've got that, and I think there are a couple more that I'm meeting too, which Sean Rennie set up, which is great to have that opportunity. I feel so bad for that year who are supposed to be graduating this year.
Oh,
I mean, it's just the worst.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it with some students in the UK as well. Mind you, God knows what use I'll be to them, but regardless. But anyway, it's just important to have those connections and to meet people. So yes, we'll be doing that when school happens again. Because at the moment, I'm a full-time teacher and a farmer. Just like
and a magician.
Hey, thank you.
I mean, I didn't know whether I should bring it up. Not too much pressure, but it's out there.
I'm not doing any magic right now. I haven't got any of my things, but yes, in the future, next time I'm on your show, I will bring a magic trick.
I think that's a perfect place to finish up.
Thank you so much.
To be continued with Lisa Campbell. Thank you so much for joining me on that show with Mahy. Absolutely.